Hey everybody, it was time for my oil change on the Camaro. It's essentially annual oil change because I don't put that many miles on it. And this is the fourth time that I've sampled the oil since the engine was overhauled. So I went through the break-in period, made a couple of oil changes, and then once I got rolling, like at the end of the first year that I drove the car, I started sampling, and my report has come back from my fall oil change this year in 2024. I'll tell you is that I'm pleased with it. It looks pretty darn good. Let me show you here in just a minute. So here's what the report looks like, and you can see across the top here it goes from 2021 to 2022 to 2023 to 2024, 4 samples, the end of 4 years. And I'm up just a whisker short of 10,000 miles since the engine was redone. I'm still running VR1 Valvoline 10W30 racing oil. Part of me would be tempted to go and flip over to a synthetic or to make a change, but the oil seems to be working fine, and from the standpoint of sampling, I'm just leaving it to be consistent for now. I think with the cam that I've got, which has a little more spring pressure and so forth, yeah, perhaps the extra zinc in the Valvoline is good. I don't know if it's essential, but it's there. And the additives in the oil, after, this year I only ran about 1,700 miles on the car in the whole year. As some of you may know, I've been traveling a lot by airplane, and I haven't had as much time this year to drive the Camaro, and it's been parked a lot, and so I haven't got as much time on it. And so anyway, it's a little shorter, and not bad. It's still getting close to 2,000 miles. And about 1,200 of that came out of a 1-week road trip. Anyway, that's kind of where it fell. Now, last year, those of you who saw, and I've got the videos posted from that, I was kind of worried because if you go down through the report a year ago, I had some pretty big numbers in here for sodium and potassium. And even for copper was kind of an unusually high. And it's like, what's wearing? And sodium and potassium typically come out of coolant, yet I have no water, and they say there's no coolant. So it was a mystery. And this year, those things have come back into line and they're gone. So anyway, if you take a quick look here, you can see the charts that they provide in this report. And water's pretty flat. The viscosity and the base number on the oil is pretty flat. It basically it says that I'm not wearing out the oil. It's not being it's a pretty good base number, and the base number is an indication of whether the oil is deteriorating. And the viscosity would also be as if it were deteriorating. And every year that number is about where it's supposed to be, and it's consistent. I'll deal with the other ones here in just a second. So here's the one where you can see iron has been decreasing every time. Now this year it bounced up a little. Not quite sure why, but it's not out of bounds. The chromium is dropping down and continuing to drop. Here's the one where you can see lead is continuing to drop, and it's coming down and flattening out. And oftentimes you'll get lead and tin oftentimes comes out of bearing inserts. And you can see tin is pretty low and decreasing, lead. So there's still some break-in effect at 10,000 miles of driving, but we're starting to get to the point where I think the engine is breaking in and finally breaking in and getting stable. But you can see this big bump here, which was copper last year, and this year, it's right back down where it's supposed to be. Again, aluminum is holding down pretty low. Silicon is dropping as well. And again, these can come out of wear metals. I mean, silicon is often in along with aluminum as an additive in aluminum. And the aluminum that you get like in pistons and so forth, it's again continuing to decline slightly. But here was this big bump last year in sodium, and again, it's gone. And they don't have a chart that shows the phosphorus, but it did the same thing. It peaked up and then it dropped. Well, last year, and again, I'm going to say if you went back to my video from last year, you'd see that we had in Michigan and much of the other parts of the northern United States a very, very heavy season for forest fire smoke. The smoke was really rough. It was really bad. The wind was bringing it down and we were getting hazy skies and so forth. And my theory was that, it was pretty persistent, was that I was picking up elements out of the smoke in the oil analysis because they will come through the air filter. And I went and found some studies that said, hey, trace elements like sodium, potassium, and copper, all three of those are found in wood smoke, firewood, forest fire smoke. But I was still a little nervous that, I've really been watching to make sure that I didn't have some coolant leak sneaking back in, from some leaking gasket or something. So I'm very pleased to see that level came back down this year. Now, we had forest fires in Canada again this year, and at times we had some smoke, but I'll say most of my driving, I did a bunch in spring early. I did my road trip in late summer in a time where I don't think there was very much smoke. The prevailing winds weren't bringing it down into Michigan and Wisconsin where I was traveling. And then the rest of my time was in late fall and at times where a lot of times people are burning leaves, but even then I don't think it was in a bad time. So to cut long story short, I think smoke was out of the equation this time. Those elements came back into line, so I don't have, so it isn't a coolant leak. It really is that you can get impurities out of the air that show up in your oil sample. So in my summary, the engine's really looking good at 10,000 miles. It's holding up well. The break-in is still completing, but I'm getting pretty darn close, I think, to being there. And I left the comment in just a reminder that I did have stop leak in this engine. I do have stop leak in this engine because I had some places where I was weeping around some of the hoses and so forth, and that stopped everything. And again, there isn't any in the oil. So that's what the report looked like. For those of you who are interested, I encourage you, especially if you've got an older car and a car that's special to you and you want to keep track of the engine, to pick up one of these Wix oil analysis kits. I started out today by showing you the reports. Now I'm going to switch and I'm going to show you just a little bit about how you go collect this sample and what the paperwork looks like and what you need if you wanted to go get one of these tests on your own. Hey everybody, it's time for the annual oil change on the Camaro. I don't run enough miles to do it more than annually. This year I've only got 17 or 1800 on it, but it's usually around 2,000 miles. But since I had this engine rebuilt several years ago, once it got through break-in, I just decided to start doing oil sampling. And so every year I do an oil sample. I buy this Wix kit, which is a 24077 kit. And I know those of you who watch my channel regularly have seen this before. But for those of you who haven't, here it is. So you buy this kit, and they've gone up in price a little. I think these were about 30 bucks this time. And you get a bottle, sample bottle, which should stay capped until you're ready to use it. They give you some address labels in the event that you need to send it somewhere other than what's on the bottle. So then they give you a form that lets you fill out and describe your application. You know, what is your car, or you know, how many miles are on it, your name and address and phone number. You can do oil sampling on a lot more than engines, so if you're worried about your transmission, or you're worried about your rear axle, or you name it, they've got check boxes here: engine, trans, hydraulic, differential, other gearbox. You get to tell them what kind of oil you're using, you know, whether you changed the filter. You know, they kind of want to know things. I'm at the point now, you know, I know how to fill this out, but once you get going, they'll assign you a customer number, and you say, you know, has it ever been tested before? Well, yes. And then you fill in your customer number from the last report, and this lab keeps track of it. And so, you know, this is my 4th one, so, you know, every year they give me you know, what does the trend line look like? Are things getting better or not getting better? So at this point, I'm going to take the sample, and then I'm going to do my oil change. To do the sample, you want to go underneath and you want to clean off around the drain plug. Well, first of all, you want to make sure the engine's warmed up and it's been run for a bit, and then you want to get this sample before, they say 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes, and you want to try to get it after it's drained about, you know, halfway. You don't want to get the real beginning, you don't want to get the real end, you kind of got to judge it. But, so I'm going to get underneath with my sample bottle and pop the drain plug, and we'll go at it. So first of all, I have a clean paper towel that's got isopropyl alcohol on it. I'll just wipe around the drain plug really nicely. You just want to make sure you don't pick up any crud off the pan. I also don't want to burn myself on that exhaust pipe, which is still kind of warm, I can tell. And then you get this nice little sample bottle, and it does have a seal on it so that you know that it hasn't been opened. And I'm going to peel the seal off of it. So, one bottle with a fill line, three bars up, and then pop the drain plug loose. Get my light out of the way here a minute. There we go. All right, so I'm going to open up my bottle. I'm going to get the oil here and get her started. Let it get going here a bit. There we go. I got a little more than they asked for, so we'll take a little bit out. There we go. And then cap that dude up. So, that's that. I'm going to let her drain here and pull the filter and finish the change. So when you get all done, you fill out the form and include it in the container. You put the other little bottle in here, and it's double sealed this way. So you seal the bottle, you seal it in this container. You can mail it to the address on this label, but the post office really prefers, and the instructions recommend, you can mail it just like this, but it'll take forever to get there because the postal service systems don't like round packages very well. So best thing to do is you take this, put it in a cardboard box, put a label on it that's got the address on it where it's going, and take it to your post office, and to mail it. Drain oil, you got to watch what you're mailing, because they're going to ask you, is it hazardous, explosive, and so forth. Tell them what you got. But normal automotive engine drain oil has a low flash point, and it is not considered hazardous. I can mail this, but you have to tell them what it is, and they'll go, yes, that's okay. It's not hazardous. I mean, if you're trying to mail a bottle of gasoline to the lab, that you'd probably have trouble with. But I've never had difficulty with mailing in my oil samples. It's just, like I say, they're not considered hazardous with standard engine oil. So anyway, just for reference, I am still using my Wix filter, my 51069, which is recommended for this car. And I stay with that because GM keeps making the filters smaller. And this one is the same size as the factory put on originally. And it's in the catalog for this car by Wix, so I stay with that one. The AC filter that's smaller is probably just fine. It's just my preference. And then I'm still using VR1. It's conventional oil. This is the VR1 10W30 that Valvoline, you know, it's got the extra zinc in it for flat tappet cams. Now, I'm not firmly convinced that you have to have this, but this was a new cam when I redid the engine. It's got heavier springs than stock. The cam people are really nervous about things, and I had a cam go flat in break-in because of a coolant leak, but with everything else. And then because I'm taking oil samples and I want to be consistent, I'm using the same oil time after time. If I wasn't doing sampling, I'd probably take and flip over now and put in Mobil 1 or even Valvoline's synthetic, which I think is probably equally good. The synthetic oils have a really incredible anti-wear and film strength, and they still have zinc in them at kind of the same levels as you had in the 70s and 80s. You know, over time they added it and it got higher and then it got lower again. But when I was driving cars in the 70s, they didn't have as much zinc as what's in here. I'm going to go finish the change, finish the report, mail it in. That's all for now.